Okay, I think we are good to go. So to welcome all our viewers again on the second lecture of our virtual tour of Jain temples. I'm welcoming back Miss Shilpa Chheda. Uh, just I think we have some technical issue. So to welcome all our viewers again on the second lecture of our virtual tour of Jain temples. I'm welcoming back Ms. Shilpa Chheda. Uh, just I excuse on behalf of Shilpa madam. I think she has some technical issue. She'll be just joining in a minute back again. She has some technical. Sorry for the technical glitch to our viewers. So we are welcoming back Miss Shilpa Chheda again. Welcome back, ma'am, to the second lecture
Thank you.
of our virtual tour on Jain temples. So, for quickly for our viewers, there were many viewers who messaged us that we can, if ma'am, I know today we're going to start on a very interesting topic, which is of the temple architecture. So, but before our viewers, can you just can we just revise the background which led us to the temple architecture, ma'am?
Yeah, sure. Can you share the screen?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So last time we left at the rocket architecture, we were going through the journey of how the early images were found. And then we went to the different rock cut temples which had the purpose of accommodation, vihara. So during the movement during various periods of summer and winter sessions, the Jain monks used to keep on moving and staying in the caves, which were used for accommodation, but later they were converted into the Chaitya Gruhas, or what we call the place of worship. And we took you to different caves of India, North India, Southern India, and how this cave architecture survived for years. And we find maximum caves in Maharashtra, nearly 1,000 caves, out of which maximum number of Buddhist caves are found in Maharashtra. The second number comes of Jaina caves. And then we started with the images, how in the cave temples images were there. In from the images, again, when we saw the iconography also developed, how it became more and more decorative, how the images which were simple, and we had maximum images of Bahubali with Brahmi and Sundari comprehending him, and images of Pashwanath. Later on, we found images of various Tirthankars, which ended at Ellora. And Ellora, we ended with Indra Sabha and Jagannath Sabha, which were the most beautifully, ornately carved caves and two-storied structures. So now we will come to temple architecture. It's not that the rocket activities and the temple architectures were separated from each other, but during this journey of architectural revival in India, from 4th century common era, we find Jain temples coming up in the district of UP in the site called Devgarh. So Devgarh was the place where you find lots of temples. Lot of temple activity went on from some 5th century to, we can say, till 13th century. It was a quite active site, and we find number of temples coming up there. Right now there are 41 temples, and with amazing imagery. And when we come to iconography, I'll be tracing many images from that period and that site. So today we will take temple architecture and we will come up with how the temples came in India. It started with the little motifs on the Sanchi Toranas and Nagarjunkonda few sites. We could find the hut-like structures and all that. And then, of course, Sanchi Temple 17 is considered the earliest temple, Buddhist temple. And the Jains also must have started temple construction by Gupta period. Now, when you look at temples, we find
Before
the,
to interrupt you, before we go to the temple architecture, can we just dwell upon a fact? What is the symbolic significance of a temple in general? I mean, like in India, we see that there are so many faiths, and in so many faiths, we have got temple worship is probably predominant in each faith. Now, what is the symbolic
yes,
significance of having a temple?
yeah. So whenever we say rock cut or temple, okay, the
Mhm.
basic difference is at one place the material is ready, and in structural we have to make a form, like we have to select a plan, and according to the plan we have to select the material with which we have to construct, and then we have to find the artist who will start making up all this. So there are variety of things going on in temple architecture, whereas in cave architecture, you need two things because the cave has to allow you. So when you are cutting a rock, it has to allow you. So basically, you have to see the porosity and the water seepages and all. So the two instruments which are required are the hammer and chisel. As far as cave architecture is going. But when we come to temple architecture, there are many, many things which we take into consideration. First thing, where we are constructing, what is the purpose, aim of temple, how it started. There are many, many things when in relation to temple architecture. Now, how it started is a question that small, small motifs were visible, and then people started construction of the temple. And the main purpose was earlier it was place of God. So a place which I assign to a deity. He may be the deity of my cult or my religion whom I worship. So it was not a massive structure, it was a small structure where I used to just bow down. Then it took the form of what we call temple as a palace. It became the place, like how kings reside in palace, temples became like palaces where the Lord is residing. The structure became very huge. Later on, we find that temple represents the entire cosmos. So we have the different heavens, different parts of the middle world, which is narrated, and the mundane world, which is narrated in temple. And as far as symbolism goes on, I will take up symbolism along with the parts of temple. So if you can change the slide and come to the parts of temple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any temple in India, as far as temple architecture is concerned, it becomes Jain, Buddhist, or Hindu with the image which we have installed inside. Otherwise, it is Indian temple architecture or it is Indian rock cut architecture. Basically, the concepts of architecture remain same, but with the image installed inside, it becomes a certain aspect of a particular religion. So any Indian temple will have Garbhgriha, will have Shikhara, will have Antarala, will have Ardha Mandapa, Sabha Mandapa, and Pradakshina Patha. So these are the six essential natures, essential elements of temple, which are required as the requisites, prerequisites of construction of a temple. Now there is particular symbolism affiliated to it, and I will go to the next slide and explain you how it is working. So can you change the slide? This is a temple in the place called Devgarh, which I just discussed, which has a complex of 41 caves, and you can see the number here. This is a small structure which is later on reconstructed, and it has only kind of Garbhagriha, whereas it does not have the other parts. Of course, it is reconstructed later, but the earlier temples were very small, like it was place of God. Now, can you change the slide? Then I can explain the different components and the symbolism. Yeah, thank you. So when we look at the temple, this is one of the temples in South India, in the actually not South, exactly South India. It's the border of Maharashtra and Karnataka in the place called Lakundi. And this is called as Brahmajinalaya, as earlier it was Brahmaji's temple, and then it was converted into a Jaina temple. And you can see that the place where we install the deity is called Garbhgriha. Now, why that name Garbhgriha? The basic symbolism involved, or the concept of Garbhagriha is, it is like you are entering mother's womb. So Garbha and Griha is of course the place, home. So when a person enters Garbhagriha, you are in the lap of God, you are one with God, you are experiencing the transcendental aspect of your life, the spiritual aspect of your life. So this is the place where you are one with God. Therefore, it is called, and it is the most secured place in the world, because now you and your Lord, there is nobody else. You are completely faithful, or whatever word you use, spiritual, your experience in this particular place is,
Mother's womb.
yeah, it's the mother's womb. So it
Hmm.
is the most like the secure place where you are inside. Can you put the slide, please? Share the screen, please. Yeah. So here is Garbhgriha, and this portion is Rangmandapa, or what we call Sabha Mandapa, the place where we do our rituals. We do Chaityavandan, we do rosary, we count our rosary, we offer many other things like form of worship. We do incense burning here, we light a diya. All these are done here, and this is the entrance gate, which we call Ardhamandapa. So here we are entering. This is Rangamandapa. Here, Rangamandapa itself, the word shows you are in the mundane world. We are in the place where we are full of desires, we are full of accomplishments, we are full of the things which we require. We ask God. Here, this is the place which represents the mundane world. So we are here in Rangamandapa and we sit here and do our offerings. Of course, we pray also. So there are certain rituals affiliated to this place, what we call Chaityavandan. And Chaitya earlier means tree or the place of worship. Uh, and we find this word in Agams, where we find that Mahaviswami spent a night in Punnabadda Chaiye. So Punnabadda Chaiye is Purnabhadra Chaitya. So there were these yakshayatans, or what we call the places where there were yakshas installed in a small place outside the temple. So yakshayatans were constructed, and we find lots of examples in the Agams. So this is the place which represents the mundane world, where we have aspirations, we have wishes, and whatever we opt for the world, which helps us to move in a mundane life. And this is Garbhagriha. Now, in between, there is a place called Antarala. It is part of Rangamandapa, but it is little elevated structure. So there is little elevation, and it is somewhere here. Okay, so that in that elevation, you can see that there are images of many a times Tirthankaras, sometimes Yakshas, sometimes some Acharyas who have left for the heavenly abode. So there are images in that. And Antarala, what we call vestibule in English, is the place which shows the transition in our spiritual aspect. So from mundane, we are going to the transcendent, or we are going to the spiritual world, and it shows the antara. Antara is the gap where we are transforming. So now no more worldly desires, no more aspirations. We don't have any kind sort of mundane worldly desire, or what we call accomplishments, or whatever we ask for. So we forget the world and we are entering the spiritual world, like we are one with God, or we are experiencing the mystic feeling, or what we call, now we are completely changed when we enter this area. Why? Because there is a change in our thought process. Now we are not bothered that when we go out, what will happen. I'm in the most secured place. So the entire temple construction is the journey within, journey which takes us from the life, mundane life, to the spiritual world. And on top is the Shikhara. This represents different heavens. And then we have what we call the Kalasha, the pinnacle of life, what we call the Moksha. And there is a small, here we find an Amalaka. It is a design which is like the Avla fruit cut, and then the spokes can be seen. So I'll show you in the other temples. So this is the Kalash part, and Kalash represents again the Garbha. Okay, because it represents mother's womb. There is water. We put a coconut over it, and it represents completeness, that our life is complete. So somewhere, like with achievement of moksha, our life is complete. So this is the aspect. When we go to a temple, when we are going, we are full of mundane activities, we are in hurry to go, we have time boundness. But once we enter the temple, we find that solace. We pass through Antaral, there is a change in our emotional level, and then we just enter Garbhgriha, where we are not in any more place which will give us any threat from outside. So, therefore, we say it is the most secure place. It is just like the mother's womb, where the
Ma'am,
embryo is.
sorry, can we have the cursor? There's a viewer wants to know in that the different aspects, as you said, what is the Garbhagriha, Antaral. Can you just
Okay,
point it
fine.
out to them so that they can isolate it better on the slide?
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So, can you put the share the image?
Yeah. So just one, just when the cursor is there, so people can understand it more better. The first part will be the Garbhagriha.
This is the entrance gate is Ardha Mandapa entrance. Okay,
Sorry, sir.
entrance
Just let the mouse.
Ranga Mandapa,
Can we
Ranga
have?
Mandapa, Antarala. The difference between the two, Antarala and Garbhagriha, Shikhara. Shikhara is the conical structure or the pinnacle on the, or what we call the superstructure on the Garbhagriha, with the kalasha on the top.
Can we
Even
have
this
more
is
slides
Shikhar
which are
portion.
depicting this more in detail?
Sorry,
In the
I cannot
further
hear
slide,
you.
we have more slides which depict this more in detail. The
Yes,
difference.
yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. Because exactly the difference will be difficult to say, but you can move to the second slide.
Okay. All right.
So
Yeah.
here you can see, this is the entrance gate. This is the Taranga temple in Gujarat, one of the earliest in Gujarat. And here you can see that how temple architecture is developing, where in Lakundi we had one entrance. Here we have three entrances. Basically, one is here. You can see the gateway. You can see a gateway here. This is Rangamandapa. And in coming slides, I will show you. This is Ardha Mandapa. This is the portion of Shikhara. Below it is what we call the Garbhagriha. And this is the portion where we have Rangamandapa. It is also with the different Shikharas. Okay, the design. Now, when we look at Shikhara, there are two drastic changes. When we come to North India, this is called the Nagara style. This is called the Nagara style. Whereas in, can you go back?
The Lakundi
And
slide.
this is called the Dravida style. Okay, this is Dravida style, where you have pyramidical structure and on the top it is flat. So it is like a pyramid which is flattened at the top and the kalash is put. Yeah, now you can change the slide. So here is the kalash again. This portion is called Amalaka. Okay, and it is like the avla fruit cut and opened, and in between you find the kalash. And kalash represents the end, the completeness, the fertility. It also reflects garbha, so it is fertility. It shows life because it has water, and it is water which is necessary for life. So this is what is symbolic. When they must have thought the different shastras which were written, like Samrangan Sutradhar, Aparajita Prucha. There were many Vishnu Dharmottar Puran. These were the shastras which were describing how the temple should be, because it has to reflect the human world, it has to reflect the mundane world, it has to reflect the spiritual world, it has to reflect even the life of celestial beings. It has to reflect the plant and animal life. So temple as a complex has to show all the units of the environment. So we have in between the designs of the plants, we have animals, we have celestial world here, then we have the image which is to be worshipped here, and we have human beings which are depicted doing different activities. So the outside portion shows what is exactly the human world, the celestial world, and the flora fauna. And then inside we have images. Generally, we have one image. Sometimes inside is also decorative, but in certain temples, you don't find much iconography in the Rangmandapa portion inside because it's a huge central hall where all of us have to accommodate for the congregational prayer or for the individual prayer. And then many a times we do certain offerings like make a swastika and with rice, and we have to offer the incense burner, we have to offer our the diya. These are the certain aspects of worship which we have to do standing outside the Garbhgriha in the Antarala portion. And again, I'll be showing you the various components as and when which we can see properly. Okay, we can go to the next. And here you can see a little bit rise. Now, this is the temple in Karnataka in the site called Hadebedu. And this is 12th century Hoysola temple. Now, Hoysolas were patrons of art. This entire structure is granite, made of granite, and of course, it's in the dilapidated state. You can see there are certain constructions done, it's reconstructed. But the uniqueness of this, because I'm going to show you a few unique temples in this particular presentation. You can see one slide here. Okay, now this is the portion where I have just shown you the pillar. Now, this pillar is in such a way, it is polished in such a way that in the polish, it gives the mirror like effect. So, when you stand in front of a pillar, you will find your image upside down. In some pillar, you will be found very thin. In some pillar, you will be found very stout, or you will be found short, or you will be found tall. So it has a mirror impact, and every pillar gives a different shape of your body. So this kind of polish was done in 12th century in India, and this is the example of a temple where how these polishes were done and how this mirror impact was brought in is still very difficult to understand. During that push, during that period, we had so many artists who had different skills and how they have represented in a temple. So here you find the entrance hall, whereas in South India, what we find, as I told you, in the superstructure called Shikhar, there is a pyramid. In North India, you have a conical shape. But here, of course, it's in dilapidated state and they have, you cannot see the Shikhara portion behind. And you can see the entrance gate
Okay,
and the
ma'am.
gate.
The temples, stating from this example of the Halibut, Karnataka, so temple architecture was also influenced by the king of that period or the kingdom of that period.
Yes. So Hoysalas were patrons of Jainism and Hinduism. And
Mhm.
sometimes what has happened in India, we find that kings had many queens. One may be from Jaina tradition, one may be from Hindu tradition or a Buddhist tradition. And there are sites like Ellora, there are sites like Pattadakal, Aihole, and there are sites like Badami, where you have the all the three traditions in one complex. So I showed you last time, it's like the communal harmony which is depicted, and a king used to always be patron and give the land, sometimes give even the collection for or the donation for construction. But we find many people have done these activities. They are the common masses, and there are these merchants, and we find many shreshtis, ministers who have constructed a temple. Like the famous temple in Dilwara is being constructed by Vastupal Tejpal, who were the ministers of the Solanki king. So temple construction has been the activity of all the masses. And we see this in India where, of course, king is the patron of art. He has to visualize art. He has to have that power of spending, because many a times we see that during the period of war, whatever booty they collect, whatever treasures they collect, they offer it to Lord first. And in this way, many, many temples were constructed in India, where we find that collection from the war was used to construct a temple. And if they are getting, as you know, the Jains always had favorable relations with the kings and the monarchs. The reason being they were doing trade and they were mercantile community, and lots of revenue was generated by them. So there is no period in history where Jains faced this problem, where they had any sort of kind of ill feelings with the ruling counterpart. In fact, there were many, many advisors were the Jain monks, where you can see Acharya Somadev Suri was an advisor, Acharya Hemachandra was an advisor, Acharya Haribhadra Suri was an advisor, and they used to be active in this kind of activities
He always
also.
had an influence on the ruler of the present time.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, all the rulers. And because we find temple activity continuing from 4th century till date. We have not
Hmm.
stopped that activity. And that itself is a live example that in
So, would
India,
we,
even during Mughal period, we had temples. Yeah.
so one of our viewers is also asking, so would we say that the temple architecture started from 4th century and before that we don't have any evidence of that?
Uh, it's very difficult to say because Devgarh was very active site, and maybe suddenly there was a earthquake or so, and there may have been temples. But I showed you before that we used to worship stupas and ayagapattas. So
Okay.
ayagapattas and stupas were worshipped. So that then later the temple architecture developed, and then we had lots of caves. So the purpose of worship was fulfilled in caves, and then later when Hinduism and Buddhism, the temple activity started. Like for example, we have the Dashavatar temple in Devgarh itself. Now Devgarh has a beautiful Dashavatar temple, a first complete temple in the form of Panchayatan shrine in India, and we have next to it the entire Jaina site Devgarh. And we have Varaha temple, which is also a very lofty structure there. So maybe Devgarh, because it is in vicinity of Mathura, and it had a lot of people traveling from southern India to northern India via Gandhar and going to different parts of the world doing trade, uh, passed through this site, and it was on the trade route. And therefore, we find number of temples constructed there, and it had a long history. So it was a site which started in possibly Gupta era and went on till 13th, 14th century. So it had a long history, and all the way along the ways, as I told you last time, as we told our viewers last time, that all the caves were possibly the points where the merchant community used to stay for the night because they were on the land routes or they were on the sea routes. So different shrines were made appropriately on those routes. So people come, spend time, then they can spend in the construction work also. And we
Oh,
have lots of temples there. Yeah, you can put a slide now. So you can change the slide. The next. Now this is the Khajuraho temple. Now Khajuraho, when you look at the Hindu temples like Kandariya Mahadev and Vishwanath temple and Devi Jagdambi temple, comparatively the size of Jaina temple is small. Nevertheless, there is complex of Jaina temples here. And what you can find is, see the way the Shikharas develop and the iconography outside has developed. So you find, of course, I will show you the closer view of the all the images displayed outside. You find that there's a complex of Jain temples here, along with 85 temples, Hindu temples, and that is a Buddhist site also here. So again, Chandelas in 10th century uh, did lot of construction activities, and this was the entire area where there was once upon a time lots of wars happening. and it was the place which was used for wars. So it was like Ranabhumi, and then there were lots of temples constructed here. And as you know, Khajuraho is world famous for its erotic sculptures. Of course, we don't find lots of erotic sculptures on the Jaina temples, but you do have in the niches here and there. But even if the percentage of erotic sculpture is 30 to 40%, people find that those were made for that. It's not that. Any temple will show life, the mundane life. And that is essential part of our creative procreation and creative process of the world. And in these temples, you can see the various experiments which we can see is how the temple structures are becoming difficult and more complex and complex, where you have number of shikhars developing, you have change in the style. Nowhere you find the designs repeated. All over India you go, you find different designs which were depicted. Now this is the Pashwanath temple, but here you have image of Yakshi Chakreshwari. Maybe earlier it was Adinath temple, and then you have even Adinath temple also here in vicinity like here. And the beautiful thing is on the lintel you have the 16 dreams, which was in the Chandela period. We could find the dreams narrated on the lintel portion. Lintel is this dwar above. In this is called the door jam, and this is the lintel. The entrance on the top portion, you have 16
Can we
dreams
put the
narrated
cursor
here.
there, ma'am? Can we put the cursor there?
The close, we can see those in the iconography. Right now, I'll be concentrating on temples.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. You can change the slide now. I'll be showing you the close-ups, don't worry. So now this is Mahavir Swami temple in Oshiaji. As you all know, Oshiaji is famous for the Oshia Matar Mandir, and she is Kuldevi of Oswals. And Oswals came from Rajasthan to Gujarat and settled down in Gujarat. So most of us who are Oswals came up from Rajasthan, and we had a number of temples constructed in Rajasthan. So here you can see the big Rangamandap. There is another Rangamandap inside, a decorative gateway. I will show you the close-ups. And you have big Rangamandap here. You have Shikharas of different style here. And there is Garbhgriha, etc. Now the extension portion of this particular temple is the structures here, what you see here. This is called Devakulika. Devakulika means dairy, what we say in Gujarati. So what has happened is, apart from the main shrine, generally in Indian temple architecture, we had sub 4 shrines on the 4 cardinal directions. There were 4 sub shrines. But in Jaina temple, we find 24 sub shrines, we find 52 sub shrines, and we find 72 sub shrines, depending on the number of tirthankar we want to uh, install here. So if it is 24, all the 24 tirthankars will be given a separate kind of Devakulika, and this will have Garbhgriha and the open veranda like this. And this veranda will be common. So you have to walk, this is the pathway, and circumambulate the entire path. This is called Pradakshina Patha, the last part of the temple component. So Pradakshina Patha is the circumambulatory path, and generally we circumambulate for 3 times. So this is a common practice in Indian tradition where we circumambulate any temple shrine. And these are sub-shrines where you can do if there is a large Jain community and one temple may not be enough to suffice the purpose. We have this kind of individual temples, small temples. You can do your elaborate worship like Ashtaprakari Puja. When you do Ashtaprakari Puja, you need little space, you need an image, and we find separate shrines like that. As far as temple architecture is concerned in India, we find that the essential components don't change, but temple is becoming bigger in size. Now, when you look at South Indian temples, we had different mandapas added to it. Like there was a Bhoga Mandapa, there was a Kalyana Mandapa, there was a Natya Mandapa, there was a Nrutya Mandapa, and each had a purpose. So in Kalyana Mandapas, weddings were done. In Bhoga Mandapa, you could eat there and have your prasad. In Natya Mandapas, we had performances. In Nritya Mandapas, there were dances going on. So they had various purpose, and you had huge temple complexes. And temple has been always a site of cultural element. It is always affiliated to the culture of that particular tradition. And it gives a lot of knowledge of the period when it is constructed. So when you look at the symbolisms here or the pictures depicted here, many a times we have the daily routines which are narrated here. As I showed you in the Udaygiri Khandagiri cave, how the king lives and how the world is moving, those kind of daily activities are shown here.
Ma'am, one of
Generally, yeah.
Maushami, she's asking us that when and why were pradikshanas introduced?
Pradakshinas was essential part of temple architecture. To circumambulate thrice again is to show the path. Sometimes it is the number 3 is very very auspicious in India. So we have Samyak Darshan Gyan Charitra 3. It represents time, past, present, future, and there are various connotations for the number 3. And generally we find that lots of influence of the Indian culture comes in Jaina culture also in the place you reside. So that part, when you say when and how, it is very difficult to trace because we have two kinds of temples. Okay, in one we have inside Pradakshina Patha, and in one we have outside. So when we have Pradakshina Patha inside, it is called Sandhar, and when we have the Pradakshina Patha outside, it is called Nirandhar. So in places like Kumbharia and all, one of the temples has Sandhar type. For example, the Sarvatra Bhadrika in Ranakpur will have the Sandhar type where we can circumambulate the temple inside. So Ranakpur, if you go through, it is central shrine and it is Sarvatra Bhadrika. We will discuss when we'll do Ranakpur. Okay.
Basically, temple architecture will be more philosophically symbolic in the terms that represents the cosmos, the mundane world, and each architecture has some symbolism to it. But inside ritualistic were basically as period of time went by, people started changing the rituals inside. I mean, but that was
Yes.
more so based on the faith and more so based on the time prevalent there, like doing a incense burning, Chaitya Vandan or swastika, or if you go anywhere, puja as a matter of fact
Yeah.
as well. So those were ritualistic, we would say, right? Correct. Temple
Yes.
architecture
Yes.
was
Yes.
philosophical.
So temple architecture will include everything. Now it will include our spiritual journey. Now you can visit a temple and you may not do the Ashtaprakari Puja. So the purpose here will be what you are offering through your heart, whatever wishes and whatever uh, kind of offerings you want to give. You may not have physical things, but you are offering through your mental bhava aspect, what we have, the emotional aspect. So it's not necessary that you have to find everything during, all the aspects of worship. And aspect of worship kept on changing as you narrated. Throughout the time, we find different things, elements are included, different elements are excluded also. We had a lot of influence of culture where we stay. Now, for example, in the southern Indian temples, you will find sindoor is being offered, sometimes a yellow color paste we offer. The northern part, you have chandana puja, you have brass puja. In certain areas you don't have brass puja. So these are the things which kept on changing. Now what you do is there is a slight difference in the worship. You have lots of images, like metal images came up, and you can take your own metal image, sit on the side of a temple, and you can do all your pujas. So the main shrine you will worship. After that, you may do your Ashtaprakari Puja using a small imagery, small idol, which is made of metal, what we call the Utsav Murtis, and they can be worshipped there. So the aspects of worship keep on changing. Many people do not have time for doing the entire puja. So whatever way you do, see, basically what is temple? The place where you should get solace. But when you are going to a pilgrimage, that is something very different. Because
Definitely.
when you are, for example, going to Palitana, now you have time. There is nothing else but your sole purpose is to purify myself. I want to go to a place which is associated with Tirthankar, which is associated with some Kalyanaka or the auspicious occasion of a Tirthankar, and I want to imbibe all the qualities of the Tirthankar. And these qualities become more important there. So we spend most of the day in the temple, worshipping, doing all varieties of worships there. Why? Because that is the sole purpose. The sole purpose, like if we go to places like Kumbharia, if we go to places like Oshiaji or Lodarwa, our sole purpose is to focus on worship. And at that time, we are going like a pilgrim. Now, the whole concept of pilgrimage and pilgrim is a person who is like a vagabond. Okay, he does not look back. He is come. He's come fulfilling his responsibilities. Even if he doesn't reach home, it is fine because now he is beyond mundane world. He has to be in his spiritual endeavor. He has to practice pure meditational practices and undergo the transcendental, what we call the ideological state when he what he wishes. And therefore the most of the time spent in a pilgrimage is like that. So when we go to local temple, for example, I am in my local area, I visit a temple, I am time bound. 10 minutes, I will finish, I will go, come back, and within 10 minutes, I will finish everything. Okay, sometimes on the holidays, I may have half an hour, I do my worship and come back. So now we have different aspects of worship depending on time also. But when we go to pilgrim, we are totally different. So that is why if we don't have
Even
time, we may just worship in the house. So
so
now, what is
speaking
the difference between we worshipping in a house, we going to local temple, and we going to a pilgrim site? The purposes keep on changing.
So when
It's
we
all
speak
the
of
same.
pilgrimage, ma'am, so
Yeah.
our Akash Shah is asking that those beautiful and artistic temples which were built on such a height in Palitana, Girnar, Taranga, now there were no tools as we see the modern day tools which were present there. So building temples at such a height and with such architecture, I mean, what is the reason behind such?
Yeah. See, in India, architecture has over the years become more and more intricate, more and more beautiful, more and more what we call developed. So we had earlier simple temples, then the detailing developed, and we had lots of guild of artists because the kings patronized art. They were skilled artists. There were material available. There were merchant community to sponsor. There were local people who could see in India, even if we earn 100 rupee, we will keep aside 10 rupees for our religious activities. And this
Yes.
kind of practice, what we have always kept aside a fund which we devoted to the Lord, has helped in all this activities. Why? It was difficult, no doubt. But as I said, the people that time were masterminds. And because of this, we had beautiful architects. Architect like Depa, one who designed Ranakpur temple. And we will definitely talk about him. So these kind of what we call architects were called sthapatis. And they based that each and every, it was like a science which has developed. So in this science of looking at the space, looking at the stone, how it will fit. There were varieties of stones. Like you have to identify which is Stri Shila, which is Pum Shila, which is Napunsaka Shila. And depending on the variety of the stone, so there is even Ling associated with rock. So if you want to do fine carvings, you have to take Stri Shila. And these architects were masters in selection, in attributing all this small symbolism on it. Now, why it became intricate is availability of all these things. And availability, apart from that, the artistic orientation. We had people who have given their lives in this, and it developed, and there were schools. And even in South India today, when they teach Sthapatya and especially temple architecture, the children have to follow brahmacharya during that time. They have to follow the activities as they learn in an ashrama. So it developed because there were various factors. You cannot say one thing. So we have sthapatis, we have in money, we also have royal patronage, we have people, we have religious mind, we have spirituality, and of course, availability of material. And even if it was not available, there were people who used to bring rock from different places. So these are all made of sandstones. Later marble was used, granite was used. So now we had a lot of choice what can be used. So when we come to different examples, I will again explain it. Yeah, you can change the slide now. So there were various factors. Now you can go ahead. Now this is Devgarh, temple number 16, Shantinath temple, temple number 32. And this is very unique because for the first time here outside, we have the projections of Yakshis. So Yakshis were, the Yakshinis were depicted for the first time on a temple in Devgarh, temple number, Shantinath temple. And another unique feature is this pillar. Now they don't allow you to click the pictures, so I could not. Here is a pillar which has 18 scripts and 18 languages of the world. So you have
On one
Japanese, 18 scripts and 18 languages on a pillar. This is the pillar. Okay. Now there is a German art historian, Klaus Brunn, who has worked for nearly 30 to 40 years on this particular site. And it is so fascinating that he has written the intricacies of the art and architecture, iconography of this particular area. And then we have Professor Maruti Nandan Tiwari, who has been working on this particular site. And nearly more than 10,000 images are found from this site, especially the images of Rishabdev with long jatas, and a variety of images of Ambika, which I'll be showing you in the iconography session. Okay, so this is something amazing. Many people have tried to study, but of course not with the success, because we have Gandharva Lipi and Shankalipi and Kharoshti and Brahmi. Few are deciphered, few are not deciphered. Yeah, that is why this is very important from the historical angle. It's a simple Digambar temple. You can go to the next slide. Next, this we have done. Next, she's taking back, take it front. Okay. Now this is the first marble temple, what we call. Marble was used for the first time in Gujarat, or what we call Rajasthan-Gujarat border, Kumbharia. And similar structures you find in Dilwara, Abu. The example I have taken now, this is the place which we call Rangmandapa. Again, you have the elevation portion and you have Garbhgriha here. This is the most ornate temple.
You wanted to basically understand the specific from looking from the inside point of view. I think this is a very good image, which is pointing the inside image of what the Garbhagriha and Rangmandap is.
Yeah, there will be many images like that. So we find this is the place called Rangmandapa, and again there is an Antarala, and there is again, you find the images installed here. When we look at this, we find that there are 6 temples here, and beautifully ornate temples, marble being used. And of course, these were basically patronized by Vastupal and Tejpal. You know, the famous ministers who also helped in the construction of Abu Dilwara. And the time frame of both the temples is same. So the artist, it is 30 kilometers away. So artist used to complete one section there and come here and do this temple. The beautiful aspect of this is the entire temple is based on interlocking system. So now you can see the pillars here, they are all interlocked inside. So this portion will be having a kind of, there is a hole here, and this portion will be inserted in that. And again, the beam will be inserted in this. In this entire Vitant, or what we call ceilings, they are done with interlocking system. And they have not used any glue or cement, and therefore these structures are living a long life. These are 1,000 years old, but the beauty is because of this interlocking system, you can see how the Indian architecture has developed and how it
I'm
is.
sure these people were not into some formal education of architecture. I'm sure they were not educated into schools of architecture. These people
There were
who.
schools. Now, if you say formal, it's not like a little degree, but of course, the Sthapatis had the schools. And
So
in
was it
this
like from
schools,
generation to generation, like an art which they carried forward from, like, how it transfers in ancient times? It was, it goes from one family to the another and another. So was it
yes,
the same, like this art
yes.
architecture, you will say, will travel like that?
Yes, always it was founding based. See, anybody cannot become an artist. There are these traditions which go through generations, and they are being taught by father to son and all. One cannot have a person who does not understand all this and can enter into this field, because the perfection of carving only they can understand, and the way they use measurements and all, it's therefore developed like a science. And you have execution of entire thing where they could understand the geometry, they could understand the arithmetic and how they have placed, because the projection and the whole has to fit perfectly. There shouldn't be space left in between. So that kind of perfection to achieve, definitely it's an art and it's a skill and it's a knowledge which has come through generations. And we have artists with the gradations, like there will be artists who are novice, and there will be artist who is a mastermind, and there will be an artist who will just draw images and the sculptor will carve. So there is this whole guild of artists. And in India we find there are mentions of these guilds who move from place to place, and they have this kind of caliber, rare caliber, where everybody is assigned with certain portion and they move in another portion, finish off that and start the work in another side. So these were kind of graded also, there was gradation, and according to that they were moving.
And one of
Yeah.
our viewers, Meenakshi Mehta, she mentions that art is basically to find solace. So, how these material things and temple art direct us to achieve solace?
See, this is the place which is sanctified. It is the place which is full of spirituality. It is selected on certain ground, on certain area, in certain space. So that particular space has become very important and it is sanctified. See, art is one thing, okay? It develops over the years and it develops on the economic conditions, social conditions, and many, many other conditions. It can be simple temple, it can be ornately rich temple. But why we started connecting with it? Because we are in the mundane world. And when we are moving from the world to the transcendental world. We are passing through these phases, and temple shows us these phases. These phases of life are narrated because temple cannot be the empty place. It is said in one of the Jaina text, Adi Puran, Acharya Jinasena says, The walls on the temple have to be beautified. They cannot be plain walls. Why? Because people have to go again and again and again, and they should feel like going. So, art basically is to attract people. They should connect with the people. And it was said that the images of Kamadev and Rati, the god of love in India, is called Kamadev. And the images of Kamadev and Rati are to be depicted out so that people will identify and then move inside. It cannot be empty structure. Why? Because we appreciate beauty in life. We appreciate when you have something to identify with yourself. You look to yourself, and what you see in art is just the imitation of nature. So, this imitation of nature has to be also enjoyed, and art is also giving you solace. Why? Because you are looking yourself in that. In the image of Tirthankar, you're putting yourself, you are talking to Lord, you are narrating your sorrows, your aspirations, your desires. And when you become like God, you know, when I'm going to temple, I'm going to burst out with emotions. Why? Because that is the temple where the Lord is going to listen to me, and that is the place where I'm one with God. I don't have to intervene. There's no intermission, it's direct contact, and therefore the temple wall should be decorative. Yeah. Now, this is the, I have to show you the intricate parts. Now, any Indian temple, may it be Jain, Buddhist, or Hindu, it will have a couple god. Okay. It will have a god called Dikpal. Dikpal is the god of direction, and there will be 8 Dikpals depending on the direction they are depicted. And there will be a Sura Sundari. Can you see this? The lady applying sindoor. Okay. Now, this is beauty, sign of beauty, and this is a world. And you will see a couple. It can be any couple who have donated, or the couples which we find in the world, I mean, in our life. And when you look at this sequence, it shows that we have all. It is representation of entire world, because we are narrating what we see outside, same thing in the temple. Can you change the slide, please? Okay. Now you can see here the people here discussing. There is a goddess here with different emblems. There is a goddess here. There are 2 Surasundaris here. You can see the Shiva here with the Trishul, trident. And many people ask me why there are Hindu gods and goddesses, why there are couples narrated, why there are the erotic sculptures narrated on the temple. See, temple is a place of education also. Temple is life also. Temple is place where we transform also. So it is part of cosmos. So when you look at the couple, it shows the mundane world. When you look at the gods and goddesses, it is the celestial world. When you look the animal, this is entire row where you see a kind of narration, sometimes of a life of a Tirthankar, sometimes you can see the war scene, the social conditions can be seen on these kind of basements, I mean, the outsides of walls, and always there are Surasundaris. Nearly 200 Surasundaris are mentioned, who are shown in different dance postures as musicians, and in different postures, which are shown in different actions. Like the lady in the earlier slide was applying sindoor. She is called Sindura. A lady who will be wearing a payal will be called Nupura. Now this is Sundara. This is Sindura, and she's looking in a mirror. So she can be called Darpana. When they are looking in a mirror only, she is called Darpana. When she is applying collyrium, kajal, then she is called Anjana. And the names are given according to the activities performed. So you can see there is always a symbol of beauty. Why? Because it will generate beauty in us. See, ultimately, temple has to be a place which we want to go again and again and again. So it cannot be empty walls. It has to have certain beautiful structures which we identify with. And then we find couple gods like Shiva and we have Parvati. Especially if you go to Taranga, you'll be surprised the beautiful image of dancing Shiva. And it is so beautiful that one cannot imagine. Now you can see the variety of dance forms here. Okay, and you can see the yoga musicians playing the percussion instruments here. Now you can see this, these are very difficult postures. These postures are what we call the atibhangas, where the body is twisted many times. Okay, and it's not very simple for even a well-known dancer to perform. So all these are symbols of beauty, and here you have image of Tirthankar in between. On this portion, you will have Vyalas. Vyal is combination of two animals. The head will be of one animal and the body will be of another animal. And they are shown on the place where there is junction. The two walls meet. Strength. The actual symbolic meaning of showing a Vyal is how the temple structure can be strengthened. Yeah, you can change the slide. Now, this is the world famous temple of Ranakpur. Ranakpur is one of the unique temples because it is called Sarvatra Bhadrika. It is completely symmetrical temple. So you have the Garbhgriha in between. There are four Rangamandapas. Okay, this is one, that was another. We have four Rangamandapas, and you have this portion where you enter a central shrine. So the images also are installed in 4 number on the 4 directions. So from anywhere you can visualize the image of the god. And each and every pillar is ornate, having different designs. There are total 1444 pillars on which this temple is based. And you find the beautiful toranas, which you can see here. Okay, we will be seeing another. Can you please change the slide? See here. It is a 3-storied structure, the ground portion, first floor, second floor, third floor. And you have beautiful narrations of life of, it's an Adinath temple. So the life of Adinath is narrated all in all these things because they don't allow you to click the pictures. It's very difficult to show the intricate carvings. Nevertheless, I have tried. And here you can see the Vidya Devis. So first time Vidya Devis come in the temple of Abu, and then you find after 500 years, that is in the year 1500, you find that Dhairav Shah, this temple has been constructed by Dhairav Shah. He was one of the merchant, and the entire idea of making this temple is unique because it is
Interesting.
in the lap of Aravali. Yeah, sorry, Dhairav bhai. Yeah.
Yeah. It will be interesting to know the story of Depa also here, right?
Yes. So that is what I will narrate you now. So this temple was visualized by Dharna Shah and it is in the lap of Aravali. You know, it is a very difficult site to reach. And elephants were employed to take the logs of marble from the other side of Aravali and to cross the entire range and bring here. And therefore, there is one whole Hathi Shala. Hathi Shala means because of this hard work of the elephants, this temple could be constructed. Now today we have cranes and we can draw graphic designs on the computers and what not we can do. Can you imagine this particular entire temple? How they must have done, and who is the architect? The architect of this particular temple is the person called Depa. Now, Depa, what he used to do, as it's a desert part, he used to draw various designs, what we call graffitis, on sand. And Dharna Shah happened to see those graffitis. And in village, the person Depa, he was like person who will do nothing, just draw such images. So people used to call him a mad person. He cannot do anything. And when Dharna Shah saw him, he said he will be the architect of my temple. And you find such rare temples like Sarvatra Badrika, so highly ornate. I think this must be the only example in India that such a highly ornate temple, and the way it is constructed with the interlocking system, nowhere the cement or iron is used. The way it is constructed and the way it is designed by Depa, only a mad person can do. And then what I feel always when I always look and go and gaze at this temple, that one has to be mad to draw such a kind of superstructure. Why? Because a sensible person cannot visualize. And Depa was fully into it. Therefore, with his rare vision, he could have done this. It's really rare because when a person is into this state of trance, then only he can visualize. And in India, a true artist will never give image if it is not done according to a shastra. So if you commission an artist and I say make image of such and such size of such and such a deity, he will not do that. He will do based on the text, how it is written in the text, how it has to be visualized, how it is to be executed, exactly following the Tala system, which is a system of measurement. Why? Because there are rules and regulations for everything. And when you visualize such image, he has to forget himself when he is making an image. See, when he is conscious, when he is so conscious, when he is carving an image, executing an image, if he is doing it with that perfection, he has to forget himself. He has to be only one with that divine. When he experiences the divinity, then only he can carve. Why? Because 100% of that art has to come out. And this, what we call, when you do art, it is holistic. You have to envisage the entire world and you are creating a life in an image. So when you're creating a life in image, you have to forget yourself. And when you think it is perfect, I know a number of temples where artist was not satisfied and he did not give the image till he was satisfied to install in the temple. And all the people bothered him. Now this is okay, you give us, give us. He said, no, I am not satisfied. He is a true artist. See, until and unless he feels that image is speaking to me, like when I am working in a curator and I deal with icons all the time, and when I teach students research methodology and how to read and how to study an icon, I have to say, I always tell, speak to the image, what it is telling, why an artist has made left leg up and right leg down and arms up and arms down. You have to talk to image, you have to forget during that time yourself. Why? If I am conscious that and then I become more calculative, I start measuring the image, I start looking at the image with the proportions and all. But when I forget and I just ask image, what is the purpose of your creation, then I'll get the answer. So true artist will be into that particular space. When he's creating an image, he is forgetting himself, and therefore we get the best possible images in the world who tell you, and they are still alive. You can change the slide now. So Depa is one of these kind of person, and therefore we get Ranakpur. I will show you the few. Now this is again what I showed you in all the Indian temples. What we find is the god, the couple god, and again the direction, god of direction. This is a pattern which follows in any Indian temple. Now, when you look at Indian temple, all are alike. Why? Because the outer structure will be carved in similar fashion. Inside, when you go, you will see a Jain image, you will see image of Lord Shiva, or if you see image of a goddess, it makes it Hindu, Jain, or Buddhist. But otherwise, it is same. So that is what is beauty of Indian architecture, that we cannot call it Jain or Buddhist or Hindu, but it is a temple and it is an Indian temple architecture. And when you talk about this, the entire pattern remains same. Now, when you develop, the art is developed, you find this window coming up. It is called Vatayan. And you find that along with the development of the temple, you find that artist always tries to give something new in the other temple. He will not repeat, he will go on developing. Otherwise, all the temples in the world will be same. And art is not monotonous. One cannot say, oh, I've seen this temple, now there's no end to it. I have seen all other temples. There's no need to see other temple. It's not like that. Every temple is unique, though the stylistically it remains same. But the way this position is, the way this position is, way this is narrated, the jewelry depicted. When you see the Hoysala temple's immense jewelry which is narrated is unique. When you go North India, the way headgears, the way ornamentation is done is different. So every temple is so unique in that sense, and it attracts people to come again and again and again. So that is the whole purpose. Yeah, you can change the slide. Huh. So we want to show the interlocking here. Now see how these are the Vidya Devis, and they are noted for different Vidyas. And in India we had lots of Vidyas, but 16 Mahavidyas what we call. And these are narrated in many Jaina texts, especially Purva text, which is now extinct. Now you can see the layer by layer. So these are made in parts, and then one upon the other they are placed. Like two will be supported by one, and again there will be two portions supported by one. So in this way, this portion and this portion are joined, and above it there will be a kind of hole in which this portion will be inserted. So you can see here there is a hole, and here there is a projection which is outside. So this image is fitted like this. So you may not know, you may think that this how this image is there, but you can see this projections. Can you go a little back? So here this whole tells us that how this image are placed, the juxtaposition of the images. And these are the beautiful vitans, what we see, the ceilings. And you find the designs are not repeated anywhere. Yeah, you can take another one. You can change the slide. Now this is the open lotus pattern. The entire ceiling is different. You can see the small miniature designs here. You can see floral motifs, and again you can see the Vidya Devis which are positioned here. And these kind of ceilings come out and it shows as if it's a chandelier. And believe me, if you go in the evening in the light of diyas, these all are brightened and they look as if it's a chandelier made. The latest chandeliers what you get in the Switzerland and various palaces what you see, the impact is such. The designs are made in such a way, and this is all what is Depa's imagination, what we can say. Yeah, another slide. So you can see various patterns which are depicted here. Sometimes there are geometrical figures, sometimes there are floral motifs. You can see variety of designs which are depicted here. Yeah, the next. Yeah, see here. So how these images are posed. So here these are the base, and here there is an hole, and here there will be a projection. So it will be fitted completely here, similarly here. And in this way you can see the gap in between. So there is some space which is called the breathing space. Therefore it doesn't crack. Even in the impact of cyclone, earthquake, you find that these kind of structures don't crack. That is the entire idea of space, how they have kept the space in between and how they have executed this entire superstructure. Yeah, you can change. Now this is the gateway, the decorative gateway at Lodarwa, and of course now in mutilated, and it's a kind of fortification which is given to the temple. So it's like enclosed wall in which you enter the gate and enter. The beautiful carvings in sandstone, especially yellow sandstone, you find in Jaisalmer. Beautifully ornate temples you find there. Of course we don't have time to show each and every temple, but I will be showing you the few. Okay, yeah, the next slide. Now this is the decorative latika. When you enter Ranakpur temple, see there are 4 doorways, but all the 4 doorways are not open. Only one is open. As I said, it is Sarvatra Bhadrika. Sarvatra Bhadrika means it is completely symmetrical on all the 4 sides. So it is 4 entrances, 4 Rangmandapa, 4 antarala, 4 entrance gates. And again, there is a central shrine. So means what we say Garbhgriha is in center. When you enter, just above on the ceiling, there is this decorative latika called Kalpalata. So this is latika or a decorative creeper. And they say when you ask for a wish, it fulfills your wish. Therefore, it is very, very auspicious. People stand down below it on the step and ask for the wish, and then it's a huge, okay, it's a huge, massive carpet. And then they enter inside. And you find that only one entrance is open. And you see this entire positioning where you see the temple in the lap of Aravalis as if you are entering into the temple as if it's the foothill of the Aravalis. So it is the location is so beautiful. Yeah, the next slide. Now this is the multidimensional aspect and how the art has achieved the higher stages of what we call ornation. So you have 5 bodies and 1 face. It's a ceiling. The moment you go on turning, you will see the head is affiliated to this body. This head is of this body. This is this body, and this is affiliated to this body. So the moment you rotate, you go on looking at 5 bodies and 1 face. So this is a Kichaka and beautifully decorative piece, and we can call it a masterpiece, how it is executed. Okay, the positioning itself, and you find such examples in many temples in Orissa also. Yeah. Next,
Mona
please.
Lisa seems very uh, Mona Lisa seems very pale in front of all these thought processes which were centuries
Mona
ago.
Lisa has her own beauty, her own charm.
So humble
So
of you being in an art
art
teacher.
is art. We cannot compare. So
Correct.
when we look at the earlier temple architecture, we had one more component called Manastamba or Kirtistamba. So in front of each temple, we had a pillar in honor of the person who has constructed the temple. So he also lives a long life and he will be remembered for generations, and this is in his honor. So you find here the design of a kalasha and a foliage. It is called Ghatapallava, and here is the Tirthankar. And on top there is a chhatra. Sometimes you find image of Tirthankar also representing Samavasaran, idea of Samavasaran. Yeah, the next one. This is the temple of Lodarva. I said one of the very ornate temples, and you can see the jalis depicted here. Inside is the main wall. This is the outer wall. And the way it is fashioned, and when you enter, it appears in such a different shape. Okay, there are projections outside and inside, and it gives a beautiful shape too. It's in the Thar desert. It's a dead end of Jaisalmer. Just before Jaisalmer, you find this temple of Lodarva, and there is one more very ornate called Amar Sagar. So you can see different jali patterns. Yeah, you can change the slide. See, nowhere they repeat the designs, and this is the what the art is, and the beauty of it is. Okay, yeah, the next one. Now this is another manastam. What we see here is the Persian pattern, and you can see the image of Pashwanath here and image here as if they are in the Samvasaran, and you find different layers of Samvasaran. This is again the site of Devgarh. Now this is completely reconstructed site. You can see a lot of reconstructions and the renovations happening here when you look at presently. So a lot of changes have been happening, but you find a lot of images also. Yeah. Number of manastams, the variety of manastams, and this Devgarh is actually a hillock. Okay, it's on hill and it's a forest area, and you can see plantations everywhere. So in this forest area, when you go inside and look at the temples, you are amazed that how come they have constructed so many. Of course, that must be very active site during that period. And here are the images of 1,880 jinas on one pillar with the Yakshi images down, and you start finding the Yakshi worship very much in the Jaina tradition with Tirthankars on the top. Yeah. Okay, now I think the last, okay, these are the different varieties of manastams again in front of the temple. Yeah, the last one, I think will be the best possible is Chittorgarh. Okay, this is one of the ultimate. Can you go to the next slide? I will show you the. So this is the Chittorgarh Manastam on the hill where you have another Manastam built by Rana Kumbha, and this is another one where you find it's completely ornate. These are the small images in the niches of the pillars. This is one of the tallest pillars, they say, uh, apart from Qutub Minar. I mean, taller than Qutub Minar. Yeah. Now we go to Palitana. Yeah. Okay, then the concept came of city temple. The entire city is temple, nothing else. So it's a pilgrim site, and we go here and we enjoy each and every temple, go in each and every shrine, sub shrine, devakulikas, and end. It's like ending the spiritual journey of our life. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Yes, ma'am, I've got a couple of questions repeating. Like Vinay Kothari has asking the Kichak, the five bodies, they symbolize what?
See, this was just a piece of art. It's not necessary that Kichaka will have five bodies, but here in Ranaki you find such example. Generally, Kichakas are shown as Bharavahakas, or one which hold the pillar, or one which are holding the structure. So the function of Kichaka is to give support to the pillar. And I'll be showing you the images in iconography. So it's not necessary that, but this is the rare piece of art.
Okay. And he's also asking a second question that women carving in the ceiling, does it have any significance?
See, the Vidyas are always considered to be associated with feminine gender. Okay, so Sola Mahavidyas are representing the Vidyas. Vidyas are what we call certain knowledges, like the Vidya to fly, like the Vidya to play a particular instrument. So Vidya is knowledge, and that way it is considered. And always, whenever there is women, it's a sign of beauty. When you want to depict a beauty, it will be the sign of. Similarly, Vidya will be depicted in sign of not male but a female.
Okay, Nishi Jain is asking that she has heard that olden ancient era, most people were following Jainism. So, do any architecture temples outside India are there which depict that they were following Jainism?
See, it's very difficult. We find example in Afghanistan, Pakistan, but now it is very difficult to say because some areas we are not allowed to go. Now, many people have given the theories, and in Iran, in Iraq, we do have temples, but I really cannot say anything because we are not allowed to go there and visit, and we cannot say for sure that it may be. It is possible. Now, many people say even in places like Southeast Asian countries, we find Jain images, but I have my own reservations. I don't think so. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Virtu Visaria, she's asking that when you were mentioning that about the rocks also being pulling, strilling, and napusang ling, how do you identify them? How do you
Then
understand them?
only an artist can identify that. See, it is they just make the sound. See, there are different sounds. Now you have you must be knowing in Ajanta there is a pillar which gives you different sounds. Okay, sarigama padanisa. The way you bang, it will give you sound. In Hampi, there is whole Vithala temple where you can play. Each pillar is giving the sound of a musical instrument. So if you go to a pillar, it will sound like harmonium. If you bang it, it will show. Uh, I mean, it will project the sound of an harmonium or a tabla like that. So they have to select, and this is only the work of very skilled master artist.
Okay.
Ordinary person cannot.
Amit Panchamya is asking, is by any means that these Jain temple architecture developed in a competitive atmosphere of rapidly growing Hindu temple architecture all through the era?
It's not nothing like competition. See, a king will patronize for all the religions, okay? And at that time, when he is allotting a particular space, he will allot for everybody. And we find this kind of cultural harmony in India. Like Pallavas, one of Mahendravarman Pallav was follower of Jainism. Similarly, Rashtrakuta king Amogavash, his brothers were not Jain, but he was, or his forefathers were not all Jains. But Amogavash, the Rashtrakuta king, was Jain. So naturally, when you have affiliation with rulers and all, they will always like to dedicate their era to a piece of architecture. It's nothing like competition. It is kind of devotion, that if I am making an image for my Lord, why not for the other traditions? Because king has to sustain, and Jainism being the religion which the community was always in the mercantile activities, and I told you much of the revenue of the uh, country was coming, they always were very mm, uh, favorable towards them and constructing temple architecture.
And in the last one, Ritu Chalani, she's basically, we are wanting to go back to what you were explaining, the local temple worship, temple outside city temple worship, and going for a pilgrimage. So that discussion is basically just, she just wants an overview of that again. So can we go
So,
on that?
what happens is, when you have place of worship, see what happens in a house, I will dedicate small space to God. The good vibrations come. That place where I'm in deep stress, I will look and I'll pray to God. Every time it's not possible to move out of the house. So it's like place of God. Now, when we look at temple as a palace, I'm going there, like local temple. Okay. Now, visit to a local temple is a kind of ritual which I follow, which I cannot do at home. I have to make my offerings. I have to do my Dravya Puja. I have to do my Agra Puja. I have to do my Anga Puja. So these variety of pujas which I have to offer to the worship, we have to go to a local temple. So the purpose there is different. And then lastly, what she is asking is the pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is a journey. Okay. Now it's a journey when you satisfy all your mundane activities, and then I'm not looking back at my house at all. If I die also, I'm not worried, because I am on a pilgrim, and I do my pilgrimage when I completely is in the moment where I'm surrendering myself to the God.
Okay,
Well, that is the
excellent.
difference. Quick
Yeah.
answer.
So I think it was a beautiful session where we understood why architecture, the symbolism of temple architecture, especially Jain architecture, and in truest sense today, I think the virtual tour of our Jain temples is something. I mean, this was just the tip of the ocean, which I believe, which we could touch upon. And
Yes.
I hope that our viewers have enjoyed this. And I definitely what we discussed also, that we are going to now in our next lecture, which is the last lecture of this series. We're going to dwell on something which is very interesting, that is the rare murtis of Jain. So basically it's all Jain iconography, how it developed, the murti culture, murti
And
and the
paintings.
and paintings, which is the most essential part. So I'm going to leave the viewers with the most controversial question and let them think about that for the next week. That there's a great belief in Jainism that each murti, when we say this is the Samprati Kalin murti, or Samprati Maharaj has made a murti. Now I know that I have fought with you and discussed with you in the lecture room for a brief period of time on this, and I know for a fact that what answer are going to come in, but I want the viewers to hook on to it to say that whether
It's
Murti Kala
possible.
was whether Murti Kala was even present at Samprati Kali Maharaj's time or not. I'm sure a lot of viewers' faith is going to be slightly shaken up with your explanation for the next time, but this I think we can leave them on a note to look forward to the next lecture. So I again thank you, Shilpa ma'am, for giving us the wonderful insight, and look forward to you for the next lecture, the last lecture of our virtual tour of Jain temples, for more of Jain iconography on Jain murti and paintings. Thanks a lot, and thanks to our viewers as well.
Thank you so much for being patient with my explanations and my excitements at the times, because when I look at art, I really forget myself, and whatever I know, it has to come out so fast. So at times I have to
That is,
really be very
that is
fast.
the passion which we cherish on, man. So don't worry about it.
Okay, so I thank you, this entire team, Sheena and team Rachna, all of them, Dilip Mehta and all, to have thought of myself, though I'm a student of art. And you gave me this opportunity. I'm extremely thankful to all of you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You will. Okay.
Thank you.